Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Game Tactical Tuesday. This one is special. Today we're joined by my friend Julia Lachey, um, the host of the Color of Money podcast, author of The Color of Real Estate. She's going to talk to us about how to build generational wealth, the lessons she's gleaned from having over 100 guests come on this podcast across the country from every background who have found success and building wealth through real estate. Uh, Drew, what are you excited to hear today?
So I've seen Julia before in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Oh
I was
yeah.
one of the speakers on after her, and it was like everyone was so blown away that I might as well just went home. So I know I'm excited just to see this one, man. This is great.
I forgot that's where I saw you at. Yeah.
Yeah, Charlottesville.
Yeah. Awesome.
So yeah, I'm excited.
All right, all right. Julianne, if we could stop sharing there we go. Beautiful. Awesome. So, Julia, who are you?
Well, first of all, good morning and thank you for having me on your podcast. Super, super excited to be here. I am, in fact, Julia Lachey. Sometimes you hear me called Julia Lachey Israel. That's because that's my real name. Julia Lachey is my stage name. And I'm a real estate professional. I've been in the real estate industry for 26 years now. And I've been with Keller Williams for 21 of those in a number of different roles. I've served in all kinds of roles. I've been an agent, I have a team. I've done the bookkeeping, and my most notable role with them is when I was serving as the head of inclusion and belonging for Keller Williams Realty International. And really, what I am is just an advocate for homeownership. And I believe people build wealth through the acquisition of real estate, which is what y'all also do. And so that's just who I am. I'm just a girl out here trying to make a change in the world.
Not trying, not trying. What I have been excited about, and I mean this sincerely, is through the Color of Money podcast, through the hosts that you have, Bo Menkidi, Emmerich Peace, Daniel Dixon, all incredible agents, right? Luminaries
Yeah.
in the
Oh, yeah.
space. Um, Really have changed some of the conversations I've heard about real estate.
Yeah, yeah. Those guys were really influential to me in the book, and I know we're going to talk about that shortly. The introduction is actually just about Bo Menkidi and Emmerich Peace. When I first saw them speaking and presenting, I had personally never seen. I guess I'll refer to it as Black excellence on that level. These were two Black guys that owned franchises, and they were millionaires, and I had never seen anything like that with my own two eyes in person before. And so it was really an inspiration for me to make it feel like, I think if they can do it, maybe I can do it. So they were really the inspiration behind a lot of things that I did in real estate, because it allowed me to see myself further than I would have seen myself without meeting them. Yeah.
And I always remember I met Julia. She came to a KW event we were doing for young professionals. Rob was there. We were doing a little proto grid, a wealth session there. Um, and we had this conversation about, and if we want to create a more diverse stage, we've got to create more millionaires of color. There's no
You
way
know what,
around it.
Justin, if I could just fill your bucket real quick, really how we met was, like I mentioned, I was the head of inclusion and belonging, and I had never felt so excluded in my life. Nobody invited me or included me to anything. And I was in the lobby, and you were like, hey, do you want to go to dinner with us? And I was like, what? Me? You're including me in something? No one ever does this. And it was a really, really big moment for me, because it was a super lonely time. And so it was a big deal just that you asked if I would come. But that's what I'll always remember you for, the man of inclusion,
Well,
Justin Myers.
I love it because it was as simple as I knew we were going to dinner with Daniel Dixon. He was going to speak the next day, and if you don't follow Daniel, you should follow Daniel. He's a powerhouse, and it was just one of those like, if you just knew this one, you just talk to Daniel, and you could figure out how to make $1 million easy. And then of course it rolled into all these other amazing guests that you've had. Um,
Including you.
yes, yeah, me and
Yeah,
Rob, me and
including
Rob have been on the podcast. We're in the book. The book is The Color of Real Estate.
you.
Um, the book's pretty incredible in terms of the amount of knowledge you've gleaned into it. Do you have a copy of the book? Tell
Of
us
course,
about it.
yeah, right here. The Color of Real Estate: Unlocking the Secrets to Generational Wealth. And really what it is, like I was talking to you yesterday, Justin, and I was telling you, My grandfather was an original Tuskegee Airman. He was one of the first Black people assigned to the intelligence uh, section in the military in World War II. And after that, he received a VA loan to buy a house. And so my mother and her siblings, they all grew up in a home. They didn't have any money, but he paid for the house with his VA benefits. And then when my mother got married, my mom and my dad bought a home, and I was raised in a house. And my children always lived in a house. And for a lot of people, that's a common story of just, we always live in a house. But there were only 2% of Black veterans at that time ever actually received the loan. For, of course, the long history of reasons in America of barriers and discrimination in real estate. 2%. We just so happen to be in the lineage of someone who was in that 2%. But there's 98% of other Black families that didn't have those opportunities. And the generational impact is the exact opposite of my experience in growing up in homeownership and owning real estate. And by the way, we were not by any means wealthy. We were far from wealthy, but we did have a house. And everybody in my lineage always had a house. Where I live in Minnesota, they're offering money still for first generation home buyers because there's lots of them. My team, I can't even tell you how many of the families we've served have been first generation home buyers. And so that's more common than the story of my grandfather happening to be in the 2% of people who received a loan and had that experience.
Do you have, and I don't want to put you on the spot if you don't, I'd be very curious if people on the call know anything about the wealth gap as it relates to housing.
Of
Anybody?
course I know. Let's wait to see if your guests know. Yeah.
Yeah. Does anybody guess what the difference is? There's a median difference and there's an average difference. Average is going to get pulled up by, multimillionaires. But Drew, you got an idea?
No,
Oh, I like
no
this.
idea.
Anybody in the chat gonna be brave? Chat, tell us where you are, by the way, and throw some cameras on so we can switch this multi-camera view so we can see y'all. Julia, do you wanna tell them what the difference is?
Yeah. So in general, people in the United States typically build wealth through the acquisition of real property, right? And so there's a home ownership gap. In the United States, typically the home ownership rate is like around 65, 70%, depending on who you are. I say average, right? Because for white households, it tends to be 72, 73% home ownership. For Black households, it tends to be 42, 44%. That disparity between the 40 something and that 70 something is what we call the home ownership gap. Obviously, there's other races in there as well, but typically when people talk about the home ownership gap, they're referring to the disparity between whites and Blacks because it's the largest disparity that exists. And it has the longest history of why it exists. It wasn't accidental. It wasn't like, oh, that's weird. It was very strategic.
Yeah.
And the fact that Black people were not allowed to access real estate. And so if there's a home ownership gap, obviously there's a wealth gap if that's how people are building wealth. And that wealth gap goes between, there's an average wealth, if you can't will, about for Black households in all the way in the 20s and 30s sometimes, versus 144,000 for white households. I mean, it's 8 times the amount of difference of wealth that a white household has versus a Black household. And if we're talking about me, like the average Black woman, I'll use myself as an example, single Black woman, I'll let you all guess the average net worth of a single Black woman. Just take a wild guess.
I want to guess accurately. It's gonna sound. I'm gonna say 27,000.
That's really, really generous. Yeah, no, more like $5,000. And in some cases, depending on some studies, it's $500 average net worth.
I think about this though, because I went through a divorce and I was like, that wasn't so bad. We have no assets. I was 30, we had zero assets, literally zero assets so it makes sense. There was zero net worth to divide up.
Yeah, but most of the time it's because of student loans. In a lot of those scenarios, particularly for Black women, they're very, very educated. I was very smart, very broke, very smart though. And the reason, again, the whole difference is the fact of owning real estate, right? There's three ways that you can, three ways that you can become wealthy in this country. One is inheritance. And we all know most of us Black folks don't got that, you know. Or two, you can own a business. Or three, you buy real estate.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's how it works here. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and I like to share that because just everyone on this call is an agent, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And so just at the very basic level, just as an agent, you are a wealth determiner in your community. Never forget, like creating home ownership is one of the most substantial things you can do to improve, right?
So does
The world
everyone
that
on
we live
here
in.
own real estate? Because let me tell you a statistic that I learned yesterday. Let me find my little note from yesterday's class. I think it was less than 8% of real estate professionals own any investment property.
That tracks.
Isn't that wild?
That tracks. I heard
Yeah.
another one. It was 85% of agents will retire with only the equity in their primary residence.
Wild. Every single day we dabble in this and don't participate.
Stand at the door, literally.
Yeah,
Stand
very wild.
at the door, literally.
So,
Um,
go ahead, Justin. Sorry, I was going to cut you off there.
no. I just you can go ahead. I just because this is not just relevant, if we're a Black American, a person of color, like that's just it is relevant that we all understand the reality of the space we're operating in because it gives you another idea of like 2025, we didn't all just pop out like there's a past here.
Mhm.
And what's really interesting about your book is, I said, hey, tell me, what's the book about? And she goes, well, the book is about, creating wealth. There's half a chapter that talks about the reality of how we got here. And then the rest of this book is 100 guests coming and sharing pathways to creating generational wealth that this door is open.
Yeah. So the foundation of it, like you said, Justin, the foundation of it is literally okay. There's a history behind why that homeownership gap exists, why the wealth gap exists, and then what? I have served on so many committees and boards and things where people want to just, I mean, they live in the barrier. Okay. Like, and then there's the Bows and the Daniels and the Emmerichs and the other 100 people that we've spoken to that have achieved very, very high levels of success. And so this book is literally an entire roadmap of how they did it. And most of it is obviously, and it doesn't matter, again, to your point, it doesn't matter if you're Black, white, yellow, green, short, fat, ugly, tall, wherever you came from, whether you speak English or not. The reality is everybody has a barrier of some point. And real estate is accessible to everyone at some level. But it first starts with the mindset shift. So a lot about it is just because, to the point, 8% of real estate agents own an investment property. There's something in your thinking that is telling you that this is not for you. It's for all your clients, but not for you. So there's a mindset shift that has to take place there. And yes, maybe there's a barrier, but for every barrier, there is a solution. And so
Mm-hmm.
the conversation is really using the tools that are at your disposal to access the solution. And if you're in the actual real estate industry, the solutions are literally on your desk at your brokerage, in your entire space. And so using those solutions to go on and create a legacy. And a legacy means a number of things, and wealth means a number of things. Wealth doesn't even, we're talking generational wealth, but I just told you my grandfather did not leave us any money. Okay, I don't have any trust fund. Nobody wrote me in any inheritance, no trust fund. I don't have none of that. Okay, my daddy ain't rich. I'm pretty certain I'm not in his will. None of that stuff, right? I don't. But what he did leave was a mindset of resilience, right? I can get
Mm-hmm.
on here and say, well, my granddaddy was an original Tuskegee Airman and he overcame da 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 da. And so therefore I stand, right? And so it's not just about money that you can leave. A legacy isn't just about passing on money. It's also about passing on knowledge and resilience and opportunity and all of those things. So every single one of us can attain wealth at some level, regardless of what that definition is to you. And every single one of us can leave a legacy regardless of what that is. I mean, I'm not a trust fund baby. My granddaughter will be though. Okay, and not because and because of her great grandfather, my grandfather, the mindset of resilience, she gets to benefit from that, and that's ultimately what the book is about. Yeah.
Well, even on the journey we're on, we were talking before everyone got on here. You are the operating principal
Mm-hmm.
of a Keller Williams franchise, so you're an
Yes.
owner,
Yep.
right? Of a franchise. You're an owner of a business. When we talk about the reason why we talk about small business ownership and real estate investing together, right? is because the real play, as soon as you buy an investment, you're really a business owner. It's got a profit and loss,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that is another, what's the definition of wealth we use, guys, right? It's when my passive income, that income flip is when my passive income, right, is able to fund my life. So for us, it's running a real estate sales team. Finally got to the place where like the profit from that real estate sales team, cash
Yeah.
flow neutral, great. For you, it could be, hey, I'm not in active sales, right, Julia? Because Julia had a team,
Correct.
but I am operating this business. I'm going to pour into this business. That's going to become the cash machine, right? So then I can buy assets. That's my wealth machine. I love that.
Yesterday when I spoke to you, Justin, you're great at not letting people off the phone without asking about their investments. And you say, so, what are you investments in? You buying any property? And I meant to tell you, no, I'm not buying any property, but I am buying some other businesses. I am buying some other
Ooh.
franchises. So I'm not really buying houses right now. I told you I was selling that duplex because I need the money for something else. I'm buying some businesses, and instead, but albeit in the world of real estate because my
Anybody
heart
want a duplex? Want a duplex in Helene?
Killeen, Texas. It's a military town. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I,
We'll throw it on. Go ahead, Drew.
I have a question. So my wife is black and my children are biracial. We have a blended family. They grew up in real estate. My wife was a realtor before she became a high school teacher. Are you noticing like the newer age children, like millennials and younger children, don't want to buy homes now? They want to
Don't get
travel.
me started on that. Well, so first of all, millennials, I'm a millennial, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm 44 years old and I'm a millennial. So maybe we're talking the younger millennials and Gen Z.
younger than millennials.
Yeah, don't get me started. I think a lot of things about them, but don't get
My children are like, Dad, we saw what you guys went through with like investment properties and how like they think a roof is like $100,000. And they're like, I'll just rent. Someone else will fix it for me. I'll just rent. Dad, get out of my house. Someone else fix it.
that's literally when my son was younger, I said, do you want to be a real estate agent? And he said, are you crazy? Do you see how hard you work? And he
Same.
was so uninterested in doing any of that. Now, mind you, they do love the benefits of our hard work and our real estate investments. But I think it is an interesting generation because I say don't get me started because I'm also having trouble with some of those younger millennials wanting to work at all. Like they don't really want to work. They don't want to buy anything. They don't want to. I don't know what they do. But I do think that there is, I mean, every generation has its thing, right? And I think it's just simply, and there's a lot of easier ways, I guess I would say, than how maybe we've done it. Like I think about my grandfather, he worked at AT&T for like 20, 30 years, right? And to him, he's like, no, you get a job and you stay at it. And then they're
Yep.
going to give you a pension and then you're going to get nobody stays at their job for 30 years anymore. We don't do that, and there's just different realities for different generations. I'm sure this generation, they're way more techie. There's a lot more cool things they like to dabble in. They don't want to be, do the kind of things we do. They want to be YouTubers and influencers and you know what? And that more power to them because there's a lot of money in that too. There's, so I don't know. I don't have anything. I have zero idea. Most of my nieces and nephews they don't have any kids. They travel where they want. They just want to be fluid and go here and to and fro. And I'm not mad at them, to be honest.
Yeah. So one of my sons, he's like super intelligent. I don't know where he got it from. We might need a DNA test, but he says experiences over assets.
100%. I mean, I don't know about over assets because the assets is
That's what I'm trying to like.
the
How can
assets
we
will
get
give
that
you the
message?
money to have the
Right.
experiences. Yeah.
Like, how do we get that message across to the younger generation? Like we're gonna have a generation of people that aren't homeowners that don't have real wealth. And like your book,
That's sad.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna order your book for my children for sure.
Yeah.
And hopefully it kicks them in the pants a little bit because my son makes really good money, and like he'll call me and say, "Hey, I'm on the way to Panama," and I'm like, "Why don't you buy a house?"
Yeah. At least first, you know what though? There's some young people in on our podcast and in the book that are doing tremendously well. They're living that flashy life with the things, but they bought real estate first and they have a foundation. But all kids started though. I don't know. You remember Montaz, Justin? Montaz is a young man. He's the same age as my oldest son would have been. And he first time I talked to him, he was in this fancy car. We were on a Zoom doing a podcast. He's in this fancy car. He's got this fancy house. I mean, he's just, oh yeah, living it up. He's always on Instagram. And then the second time we interviewed him some years later, he's like, oh, I downsized. I sold all that. I sold all of that so that he could stack his money, and he still does the experiences, but he learned like how to financially do that in a responsible way where he's building a ton of wealth. He's got a ton of investment properties. He's
He's
doing
a good
really big
dude.
things, but he still lives the fun life. But there's a you gotta build the foundation to do that kind of thing. But
He
lots of
travels
those
a lot
stories
too, though.
in there. Yeah.
Yeah, he does a lot of TikToks with his shirt off. He travels a lot. I always laugh at him like, man, you're just living it up.
Yep. Yep.
Drew, I'm thinking about if we haven't read the book, The Psychology of Money. I put it off for so long. It is highly entertaining. It's mostly reading a Michael Lewis book, but it's more of like a psychology book than a finance book. And it's basically it says that our perspective on money is totally shaped by what we live through. Every generation, you know, who had a client that wouldn't buy a house during COVID because the market was going to crash? They wouldn't buy. Am I the only one that had people that wouldn't buy when rates were 3%
Isn't that
because they
crazy?
knew what goes up must come down, and now they're sitting on the sidelines? Um, I think that's an interesting one. So actually, what I'd love to talk about, Julia is Julianne's on here as well. Is there's a lot of tactics we could go into. The book is
Yeah.
incredible for these stories. The single biggest thing, and I've heard this a lot, Drew, recently, is mindset. Again
Mm-hmm.
and again, Karina Loken came to talk to us yesterday, and she's like, really, honestly, if you're doing a new initiative on your team, mindset is 90% of it. Do you think it's going to
Mm-hmm.
work or not? What are if we're going to go out, we're going to communicate, we are the wealth determiners for everyone in our world, and we're going to communicate with them. What are the biggest things you've learned about mindset from leading this pod, from interviewing these 100 guests that maybe we could carry
Yeah.
with some of the noise?
The first thing is just I think when people have a barrier or a circumstance or a reason, they tend to sit in it for longer than maybe they should. Emmerich always says people need to hurry up and get therapy, really, because you're sitting in something. You're saying, oh, well, because my mom was because my, great, got it, totally understand. And then what's next? How do we get the help from that so that we can move on, to what you can be? The mindset is the number one barrier for people just thinking the thing is not for them. I have someone on my team makes $300,000-$400,000 a year, depending on the year. And to this day, it's just like, yep, I just have no idea how I'll ever get to passive income. Nope, I have no, just won't buy an investment property, just won't, just stuck
I
in the mindset of um it's just not for me. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I hope I get my next sale. And I'm like, hey, why don't you get an assistant? Oh, I can't afford an assistant. It's something that just keeps you there. And if you are one of those people and you're like, I know that I'm kind of stuck. I've been that way for a while. Yeah, I'm not, no joke. Get some therapy. There is something that needs to be worked through to change your mindset for you to see yourself successful, see yourself win. Literally,
mm,
I'm a huge advocate for um, boards, vision boards, because you do have to see it to be it. That's why I start the book with Emmerich and Bo. I had to see that to now be able to be in the same space, on the same podcast, on the same, I had to see it first. So
and
I
and
use these vision boards where I put everything I've ever put on my vision board has actually come to pass. Literally everything. And that's not by accident. That is because I see it, I believe it, I get it. What's that song? I see it, I want it, I get it. I don't know what it was, but but you do there is something to be said about seeing it. So that's why I say, Drew, about your son, show him Montaz. Show him, show them people that look like them, that are doing things that they want to do, and then follow how they got there, right? Everyone has a path. And that, again, back to the book, it's literally the roadmap of how these people got there.
I'm thinking of have you ever put him through oh my gosh, why am I going to draw a blank on it? Quantum Leap, Drew?
He started the day one, and then he does his own thing. He's very
Well, so
young.
then he missed day two. This is why he's still doing this. So Quantum Leap is a success class that Keller Williams Next Gen. I was an instructor there, and it's success skills. It's for people, young people. up to 18 and 18 to 27 years old. There's probably someone in your community that could teach this. And it is, what's your mission in life? What are the habits you're going to have to form to achieve that mission? What are the relationships that you're going to need? And how are you going to fund that mission? Drew, well, you could do it with him. Now, how are you going to fund that mission? When you just pull out the calculator and you show him
No,
that
Drew can't. I'm going to cut you off here. Drew can't do it with him.
that's
Somebody
true.
else
That's
has
true.
to do
Yeah.
it with him.
I want,
He's not about to listen to his dad.
thank you.
Not anymore.
But anybody got to guess how long it would take you to save enough to retire on the median income in the US? Throw a number out. You can unmute, you can put it in the chat. Quiet, everyone's locked in.
Yeah.
Never.
So I'm going to, yeah.
80 years. It's 80. Technically, it's 80. If you could live, if they give you the anti-aging shot, we live to 120. Congratulations. When you're 100, you could retire.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I'm going to add on to that, Justin, the Quantum Leap, I'm also an instructor and a coach. So these young people, 18 to 28 years old, once they go through, it's just an 8-hour training. Once they go through the 8-hour course, or they can apply to have a business coach. And it does not have to be real estate related. It can be any business they desire to be in, or anything they want to do in life where they can have their funded. Once they get the coach, and then they can also apply for $10,000 to fund that mission. Example, my niece actually went through the thing. She received a coach. She did what the coach said. She applied for the money. They paid off her student loans. She will not be one of those Black women with a $5,000, median net worth, because she doesn't have any student loans. They paid that off for her. And then, her mission has nothing to do with real estate. She has a psychology degree and she teaches children. But that's what that money went for. I had the opportunity to mentor a young man who was in school to go to law school. He wanted to be an attorney for marginalized people. And so he went through the program, and I coached him through getting his money all situated and getting the right classes and all that kind of thing. So it can be for anything, but it's just, you have to have the desire to want to start somewhere and then follow someone who has seen success and do what they do. You don't have to reinvent the wheels. You don't have, this is a roadmap. People have done this before. Emrick and Bo have done this before. You say, I run a market center, a franchise. Who do you think I call? And I'm like, okay, now what, Emrick? Okay, now what? Okay, now what? Find somebody who's done it before, model what they've done. Yeah.
So what I think might be helpful, because I know we got a lot of agents on here, and I know if they're on here, they've got a heart for community. They're locked in on this. You've shared some things about the riches and the niches, about the opportunities that are available in communities that people are not thinking to serve, that have just blown my mind, separate from everything else, like tactically. I remember you telling a story about, in Minneapolis about financing. Only one agent showed up, right?
Yeah.
Islamic where you're like, there's 80 pre-approved small business owners, there's one agent. Like, if I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, this is great information and I'm on board, what's some action, what's some takeaways for the agents you're talking to in that world?
Well, the first action, of course, is to go to Amazon and buy the book, right? Like go to Amazon, buy the book. But the second action is to first, like kind of back to the quantum leap theory, figure out who you are and what you want your life to be about. Because with any entrepreneur, there are steps to this. And the steps start with, what is your purpose and your passion? Like, what do you want to be? What do you want to be known for? What do you want to do? What is your purpose in life? Everybody has one. You are here for some purpose. You are fulfilling a purpose of some sort. What is that? What is your purpose? What is your passion? And create your own mission in life. This is what I want my life to be about. Start that as a foundation. Once you decide, okay, this is the mission for my life. I am an advocate and the inspiration to other people who want to be whatever it is. Then you create a plan from that. As such, that means I must become this, do this. Who do you need to be to do that? And my greatest fear, we talked about this yesterday in a training I'm here in Austin for. They said, what was the question? What are you afraid? What do you fear? I'm afraid I'm afraid of being broke. I am literally running from being broke. I grew up broke. I was always broke. I'm afraid of being broke. And yesterday, my granddaughter's mom texted me and said, hey, do you want to go half on Journey's birthday party? And like, I'm afraid of ever having to say I don't have it. I never want to say I can't pay for the baby's birthday party. And so I'm literally running from the fear of being broke, because what I want to be is whatever they need me to be for them to be successful. And so I have to do these things, but first I got to get your mind right. And once you get your mind right, and I know that that's my purpose in life. My purpose is to leave a legacy of wealth. Again, she's a trust fund baby, but it ain't no lot. She ain't getting no millions. I ain't no Elon Musk, like it ain't gonna be nothing like that. But it'll be something. It'll be enough to know that you are loved and you have a foundation and that you are somebody and that you can build whatever you want to build. And that's what I want to be about. So determine, what is your purpose? What is your mission? What do you want to achieve? And then you've got to write a plan. You need
Mm-hmm.
a plan. What is the plan? What is on the plan? What is the first step? If you are not a homeowner, which a lot of real estate agents do not even own their own home, that's where you start. You start by figuring out, how do you get yourself in your own home? Once you do that, if you have some money left over, what are you investing in? Um, Obviously, for most real estate agents, it's not real estate, but that should be the next thing. How do I get my next investment property? And if investment property isn't for you, how do you get your next business? How do you run your current real estate team as a business? That's the other thing. You might be in real estate, but are you really running a business? Most people aren't. Can you sell it? If you want to say, I'm done doing this real estate thing in 10 years, who would buy it? Are you building a business somebody would actually buy? And if not, start making your real estate team a business. Simple steps. Get your mind right, right? Buy a house, get an investment property, or buy a business. That's it, in that order. Yeah.
I love that. We talk about, we teach investing 101 here locally, and we talk about, have you earned the right to invest? And Bob Kalinsky, if you don't know Bob Kalinsky, he runs a great, running your business like a business class. And he opened my mind of, hey, Drew, how many months of personal reserves do you have? How many months of business reserves do you have? Are you adequately insured? That's the one that always blows my mind. Are you adequately insured with disability, life, accident, or are you getting rich so you can just lose it the next time you get in a car accident?
Mhm.
Right? Like, how are you going to hold on to these assets over time? And that, if you don't know that, DM us, right? We can send you this checklist. KW Wealth had a great one. I
Yeah.
was talking to Gabby the other day about this, but that is kind of helpful in terms of setting that plan.
But
Um,
again, everything you're saying, you have to start thinking that way first, right? Like you have to start thinking about, wanting to have the conversation of, well, so groups like this, this group that meets and this podcast and this, just being around other people that are talking like this. Who are
mhm.
you around? Are they talking like this? Are they not talking like this? The fact that you're here, obviously, I'm preaching to the choir, but
Who
making sure you're around the right people.
who was before Bo and before Emmerich and before, who was somebody that was an unlock? Because by the time I met you, you were already the head of inclusion and belonging. You had already climbed.
Mhm.
Who was a mentor from you before that kind of like showed you that was possible?
That just started from, because I bought my first house when I was 19. I was a
Okay.
single mother. I had a baby. I was 19 years old. I bought a house because that's all I knew, right? Like
Mhm.
I wasn't like 18, like, well, now let me go and find another apartment. That's not my history. I bought a house. I knew that much. That's why I say my grandpa didn't leave us no money, but we never had a lot of money. We had a lot of sense. I knew that. So I bought a house, and I realized in my community and at my church, nobody else had one. So I started teaching classes, in my neighborhood about how to buy a house. I started, participating in that. And then from that, I started writing the classes about how to buy a house, how real estate agents should help people like me buy houses. And it kind of just evolved from there, much like you all who are on here, just being somebody in your community that participated. Then I started a nonprofit, so that we could teach the community how to buy houses. And then I was doing these classes and doing these things, and they found me. They said, hey, I moved to Texas to expand our real estate team, and they said, we have a social equity task force. We heard you write classes like this and you talk about this kind of thing. Can you do something for family reunion? And I met Gary Keller. And honestly, that interaction was not what I thought it was going to be. I actually I he we did a podcast, and if you know anything about Gary Keller, he never stays on script. We practiced it on a Tuesday. I felt comfortable about it. Thursday comes around, and he Doesn't do anything we practiced. Yeah. And in fact, he asked me, the first question he asked me was, Julia, define racism. And I was like, that is not what I thought we were talking about. So I was like so thrown and then he made a statement that I didn't entirely agree with. And he used a tie down. If you all in sales know what a tie down is, it's like, wouldn't you agree? But I was like, no, I wouldn't agree. And then he rephrased, and tied me down again. And I'm like, no, still not tracking, And we kind of got in a little spat to the extent that I hung up and I cried and I called my OP and I said, oh my God, I just got in a fight with Gary Keller. And I was so embarrassed about what this was going to look like. And I told him, I said, can they edit kind of our thing? Because that's not what I wanted to convey. And he said, what did you want to convey? And I said, I have had a great experience at this company and in real estate in general. And I know that that's not everybody's testimony. I just want to talk to other leaders about how to make real estate inclusive for everyone. That's all I want to do. And a couple months later, I got a phone call from Gary Keller, which was like getting a call from God, like on my Google number. My Google number rings and he's like, this is Gary. I'm like, Gary who? Right? Like, and they asked me to lead this effort to make real estate more equitable for not just our associates, but for all the people that we touch and serve. And that's how I stumbled into that role, was from a fight I got into with Gary Keller on a podcast about racism in real estate, which was not what I thought it was going to be at all. But it was just because I started in my community teaching homebuyer classes, because when I bought one, I realized nobody else had. All my neighbors were renters, and most of the people at my church were renting. And I just started teaching other people how to do what I did. I didn't think much of it.
How many years, when you're having that conversation with Gary Keller, you bought the house at 19, how many years later was that when you're talking to Gary?
A lot years later.
Okay. I can tie you down. Not gonna tie you, but just time, right? Like time on task over time.
Much time. And it was just me. Again, I'm just head down in my community, teaching classes, selling homes to first-time home buyers. For 13 years straight, I served first-time home buyers. Generally, they were women like me who sought me out because they were like, hey, she did it. Kind of similar to how I saw Bo and Emmerich, like, you did it. How'd you do it? And I typically just helped first-time home buyers, normally just single women, get into homes. And some of them were really difficult clients other people didn't want to deal with. And I realized after years of helping the same demographic of client that it was just generally fear. They would sometimes combative with a little attitude, but all of it was literally fear-based, which I understood because I came from the same place. And so, yeah, that's what I did. I just served those people and taught and wrote classes, and that led to my role as head of inclusion and belonging.
Oh, how about you, Drew? I got some. We had an amazing young agent come on, rookie Delara. I just got some goose because it's just so, when you laid it out, I got the goose because it's so simple.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a home and I looked around and I saw a need.
Mm-hmm.
Someone should do something, and I'm somebody.
Yep.
And everything just grew out of, you didn't say, hey, I'm gonna go become, right? I'm gonna go become
head
of
I think that's the thing.
the biggest
Everybody
real estate
wants
company
to
in
be,
the
everybody wants to be way up
house.
here. Yeah. No, the girl next to me, I was working a part-time job. The girl next to me is like, I want to buy a house. I'm like, oh, I totally know how to do that. I just got, I totally know how to do that. I'll do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just, one thing, just helping your community really. And it helped me out quite a bit.
What did your business, what kind of business did you build over 13 years? What does that business look like?
The real estate business?
Mm-hmm.
It evolved into the team. So I don't do any real estate sales. I have a team that I partner with, the Signature Group. One of the managing partners on the Signature Group is run by Trey Adams, who was actually in a coaching program that I had, and he was one of the new agents that came to be coached, and he started a team in it. And he is a powerhouse in Minneapolis that has single-handedly helped close the homeownership gap in Minnesota, which has had previously the largest homeownership gap in the country. But single-handedly, he has helped almost 400 families in Minneapolis buy a home. And so that's kind of the legacy that lives on. Is like I passed the torch. I don't do
Yeah.
sales anymore, but that's absolutely what our team was always about. It was about helping people at least just get in to home ownership. And helping them see it's not about girl, it's not about the quartz countertops or the kitchen or none of that. That's what I used to have. It's like, girl, I'm not gonna look at that. Yeah, look at it, and that's not why we're here. Okay, yeah, that's not why we're here. We're here because this is our in, right? And then from here, we'll go here. And then from here, we'll go here. And that's even
Yeah.
with the language. The language we use, we never say, this house, we'll say, well, we'll with this house, but the next one. We always talk to our clients with the assumption that there'll be a next one. Like, yeah, that's just this house. This house, we'll start with this house. And then the next one, we can get that. We always have the language of, and then.
Mm-hmm.
This first house is never the end. This is where we're just gonna get our foot in. And then what we'll do is,
The way to buy your home of the dream, to buy your dream house is to buy a house.
absolutely. Yes, yes,
Yeah, no, I love
yes.
that.
My house now, I love my house now. I would call my house my dream house. My first house that I bought when I was 19, the reason nobody in my neighborhood owned a house is because I was literally surrounded by crack houses. The one across the street, oh my, you get raided like every other day. You could sit on my porch and it was like watching an episode of Cops. Okay, like what in the entire hell, right? But it was an end. That's all. That's all the money I had. You know, I had to start somewhere. That's where I started. Even when I drive by that house today, it was a nice house, but it was not a nice neighborhood. And even when I drive by that house now, I laugh like I can't believe I had my kids live here. But we had to start somewhere, right? We had to start somewhere.
I love that. Who's Drew? You got some questions? Yeah, I saw you jotting notes.
I really just wanted to talk about that the future, right, with these. And so she hit on that, and I think it's great that I probably should sign Jordan up for Quantum Leap again and make him do it now that he's older. But that was my main focus. And then,
Okay.
like any advice to young children, where to start, but I'm going to just get them the book. I
Yeah.
think that's probably
Yeah,
it. Just
but
start with
but
the
yeah,
book.
I love the quantum leap thing. I think it's good. My son, the first time I taught it, my youngest son was 14, and I did not think he was going to listen at all. And he only came because my oldest son passed 6 years ago. He was 20 years old. And so I had done it in honor of him. I did a quantum leap session in honor of my son that passed with all his friends. And, for his birthday, I said, I just want y'all to come sit and hear me talk at this class. So they came because it was in honor of my son. They weren't going to say no, to his mom.
Right.
So like his members from his basketball team and his track team. And my son came, he was only 14. And I definitely didn't think he was going to listen at all. And it was my first time teaching it. And when it was over, I said, I don't think I'll teach that again. That didn't go how I wanted it to go. And my son said, really? I liked it. I got a lot from that. And I was like, what? And just the simple thing that he applied simple things. You don't realize some of the things that they do pick up when you put them in those environments and they learn along the way. But yeah, for sure, that's a great place to start. But again, just you being the example, I think, is doing more than you think for the young people. Them seeing that again. My granddad didn't think, you know what I'm doing? I'm building a legacy for my great grandchildren. They're gonna see me and they're gonna think that's not what he was doing, But that's what happened, So it
Hmm.
does just start with they are watching us, you know they do see the things that we're doing, but for sure, do share the book. There's also a workbook. Justin, you mentioned like the activities. There's
Hmm.
also a workbook that you can literally work through some of
Is
these.
it out? I saw somebody
Yeah, you can go
did
to
have the super secret advanced
the
copy.
super secret. Yeah, it's not, that one's not on Amazon, but it is on thecolorofrealestate.com. If you
Okay.
go to thecolorofrealestate.com, you can buy the workbook. And also, we did a book launch with some really fantastic, phenomenal people. It is 2 hours of wonderful information that you can watch and fun. You can watch that book launch, and it's got Mark King and Marky Lemons and Daniel Dixon and all the people talking about these strategies. That's on that website as well, thecolorofrealestate.com.
Who's got a question? Because I wanted to, we kind of had a wide ranging, but we also this book is incredibly tactical. Like
Yeah.
there is the people in here are She said million. No, they are multi.
Yeah,
Bo and Emmerich are ballers.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is not, there's some people on here. Daniel is the number one real estate team in Colorado. There are some people out here that are crushing it at a very high level. Anybody have any questions on some tactics, some legacies, some comments? I see Matt just unmuted.
Yep. Hi, Julia. Thanks for coming and serving today. Um, I think we all, to some degree, know you can't make people do what they don't want to do, but you can try and remove obstacles that are going to harm them from doing what they should do.
Sure. Yeah.
In your experience and just kind of like, working with different reluctant homeowners, let's say, like what's been some of the best um, lessons to kind of teach them like, look, this is not as scary, or you're not, this is not above your head, or
Yeah.
you should participate. Like what's kind of some of the obstacles that you've removed, and how'd you do it? How have you helped people in that way?
Stories. I think if you can find someone that they can see that they see themselves in, and share a story, because sometimes I understand why you're afraid. If you're like me, I was scared too, or find someone that they can see it. Numbers and data don't always do the job, even though obviously that would be hey, there's 77% more, nobody cares, when they're scared. And so education probably removes most of that. That's why I taught those first time homebuyer classes, was to provide education about it, and from someone that the people will trust, that they see like, okay, you've actually, the reason my home buyer classes were so successful was because I was teaching them. And literally, I live in your neighborhood and I go to your church, and I too, had all the same challenges. And finding someone that people can see themselves in, that's why people say representation really matters. Finding somebody they can see themselves in to share a story that they'll trust, and just educating them. I have literally went and got clients from their work to show up at closing. Like, where are you? Scared to come to closing. Like, I'm outside. Yeah, like I am outside of your job. Get in this car, right? but there is, the fear is real, especially if someone in their family has experienced it not going the right way. That's a very real thing. And so the only way to remove a negative experience is to show, I think the number is like 5 or 6 positive experiences. And just showing stories, more and more stories, introducing the people who have done it successfully and not failed. Storytelling is big. And Justin, I use that a lot as the head of inclusion and belonging. Storytelling goes a long way, a lot more than talking at people. It's like, hey, I know this guy named Justin, and Justin did, telling stories helps a lot. Yeah.
Cherie.
Hi, Julia. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Thanks for the conversation today. So, Justin said that your book is practical. And I was wondering, like, I put a comment in earlier saying that, so my parents, grandparents, et cetera, great grandparents, we came from landowners in Louisiana. So, we've always had homes as well. But when we're speaking with someone who's first generation, a lot of times we take things for granted. Because when I bought my house, my mother and father were like, okay, you got to do this, you got to do that, blah, blah, blah. Is there a list in your book or anywhere, a checklist that you have that's like when you're talking to a first generation homeowner, like one thing I think of is setting aside some money from your paycheck for repairs, you
Mm-hmm.
know, getting certain repairs done on a periodic basis, like little things that over time I learned because my mother was helping me that first generation people, if they don't
Yeah,
have anybody assisting them, they would never know these things or know to even think
sure.
of these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, and so in the book, there is a checklist about getting to a home and all the prerequisites. Once you have the home, and the workbook too, in the workbook and the book, here is the literal process. Now, to your point, and that's kind of why I share, like, my parents got divorced young, and my mom didn't. My mom still has never owned a home on her own. My dad did. My mom has never owned a home on her own. And she's 74 years old, and so I didn't, when I bought my first house, I didn't know any of those things either. The man came to fix the furnace and he said, when's the last time you changed the filter? And I'm like, the who? You know, I don't even know what that is. Right.
Yes.
But, I remember I called, and I was sitting on the floor, called my brother crying because I was like, they want me to pay the water. Like, he like, yeah. I'm like, what? Yeah. So it was, those kind of things. But I think that's an opportunity for you, Cherie, to teach that class. That's exactly where you come in and say, here's all the things nobody's about to tell you. You know, you got to change the furnace. They're going to want you to pay your own water. They're going to, they're going to want, these are, and that's an opportunity for us to say, here's all the things that I learned along the way that you should learn. In fact, I'm sitting here thinking, you should be doing YouTube videos, 3-minute YouTube videos. You sell houses, right, Cherie?
No, I'm a lender, but
You're
it's
a
still the
lender.
same thing. Yeah.
Same thing. YouTube videos. Hey, 5 things you probably didn't know. Hey, get prepared. Here's how much money you should make, like 5-minute YouTube videos with all this information and share it.
Yeah, that's a really great idea.
Because yeah, I didn't know any of those things either.
And I
Yeah,
think so many people don't. We just take that for granted, you know.
well, it's not even just that. It's I think sometimes if we're talking about first time buyers or anybody who's worked with somebody who's not, you've got clients that are maybe not in the financial system.
Yeah.
Like they're not really using credit. It's a whole world of I see Ryan nodding, right? It's not just the home ownership, it's this whole other ecosystem of things we take for granted, which is just like, right?
Yeah, I was in an Uber and I met a guy from, I can't remember where in Europe, somewhere. And he was telling me he's living in his sister's basement. Not because he was well off where he lived, but came here and we have a credit system. And they didn't have a credit system, so he doesn't have credit. So he has to live in his sister's basement until he builds enough credit like we are one of the only places in the world that owing somebody money is a good thing. In most cultures, owing somebody money is not a good thing. You pay people what you owe them in most countries. And so he is literally having to rebuild his life because he has no credit. He has no, and that's a lot of people's story, but even again, as for you as a lender, Cherie, that's where you start. Hey, do you not have credit? Here's where you should start.
And then, we started this conversation. Well, Sheree, do you have anything to say? I don't want to cut you off.
No, that was it. That was just my comment and question. Thank you, Julia.
Thanks for being here. Thank you.
Sheree's amazing. Sheree, the money lady. So, do you, we started off kind of talking about the past. I personally am very optimistic because I get to see, to your point, these stories again and again and again of young people, right, showing up, of people of every background having success, taking advantage of this strange world we live in where, you do have access to, right, everything in the palm of your hand. But tell us, what do you see? Is there an age limit for the quantum leap? I love
28. They
this
raised it
question.
to 28. Yeah.
Yep. Is it 28? They do teach it to agents. You can catch one for agents. That's open to all ages.
Yeah.
And all the KW classes are open to every agent. So you can always just go,
Mm-hmm.
this is brokerage agnostic, but you can always go mob in and go jump into one of those classes. What do you see for the future? What do you see happening? Let's because I think obviously, right, our feed is filled with doom and gloom. And I personally believe the world keeps getting better and better. If you look at the stats, it just seems to less people are
Well,
looking.
the world is an algorithm, right? Like it's just like if you're on YouTube. Like I started watching these crime YouTube things. All of a sudden, that's all that's on my feed. It's all that's on my feed. Guess what? So and so did to their kid. This person killed their, and I'm just like, oh my god. And I got sucked into it. And now my whole world is just death
Yeah.
and doom and gloom and crime. And what I do? Let me watch a comedy show. And then all of a sudden, my algorithms start to change when I get myself interested. Life works like that. You're only seeing doom and gloom because you need to change your algorithm. Your algorithm is bringing you in life what you're looking for. If you're only surrounded by people who are highly and wildly successful, there's no reason why that doesn't look like that's an option for you. But it really is, what are you consuming, right? What on your phone are you looking at? What are the social media, your Facebook thing? That's an algorithm. They're showing you what they think you deserve to see. And so the only person who is capable of changing what you deserve to see is you. And so pick a different circle, pick a different crowd, watch a different show, read a different book. Now on YouTube, I got really scared from one of those crime shows in the middle of the night one night. So I turned on this YouTube thing that was like, fall asleep from the word of God. And they were like, peace be with you always. And I'm like, yes, okay. and now every time I go to YouTube, scriptures come up and that's you. You chose that information. What are you choosing to consume, right? And so if you want to continue to consume educational information, you have no choice but for the world to be the algorithm to come to that. If you're choosing doom and gloom, or you want to look at politics all day every morning, that's going to be the world is going to give you that, you know. And so
Mhm.
what are you eating and what are you consuming in your mind? What are you listening to? What are you reading? That is 1000% up to you. The world is only doom and gloom because you chose to watch doom and gloom. If you look at all the other things that are going on that are great, that's exactly where the world will give you that. It's up to you though.
Well, I love that you said that because when you were talking earlier, I was thinking about the book Psycho-Cybernetics. I don't know if anybody's read it, but it's like this foundational book about visualization. Jesse Coleman is one of the guys that turned me on to it. Jesse also has someone he coached that went through and got that scholarship. So
Yeah.
Sandra, pretty amazing scholarship. Like it's very achievable. The number of applicants,
Yeah.
like they're usually looking for applicants. But you know, we all understand it when you see the algorithm. You get it when it comes to YouTube, but the world is no different. When
Yeah.
I'm looking at examples of success, like
Yeah.
it works the exact same way, right? Would you agree, Drew? I am surrounded.
Absolutely.
Uh-oh.
That's okay. We lost, but you know why we lost him? Probably because we're way over time. Aren't we way over time?
Yes, we are. We are.
Okay.
And I will shut it down. Thank you, Julia, so much. This is like my third time hearing you speak, and you just crush it and just bring in energy that's amazing. I know everyone on here appreciates it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone, for being on here. It's great to be here. Thank you so much, Drew.
Absolutely. And we put where they can get your book in the chat
Yeah,
and
thank you.
workbook.
Awesome. Thank you all so much.
Thanks.
Take
Have
care.
fun at FSO.